Hi, in this video I'm going to be comparing mostly the Eagnas Challenger and the Klippermate, and to a lesser extent Stringway. When I say Stringway, it's basically these models, the MS200, ML100, and the newest ML140L. But of course the Stringway is in a different price class and category than the Klippermate and the Challenger, so it's mostly about these two models that I'm going to be talking about. And I guess I can start out right away. People will ask me, well, will any of these machines string a racket? And the answer is yes, it will string. And then the second question is, will the cheaper Eagnas and Klippermate string as well? Be as reliable, easy to use, just everything you need from a stringing machine compared to a Stringway? And the answer is obviously not. The price is very different, and the quality and the design and the build and everything is very different. So you get what you pay for. If you want the best stringing machine, then buy a Stringway. There's just nothing around it. Not to say that the Klippermate and the Eagnas cannot string a racket, but there are compromises, and I'm going to talk about that as I compare the two. So I guess we can start first of all with the clamping system. The Klippermate uses flying clamps. Eagnas Challenger uses fixed clamps. And people ask me which is better, which is worse. I made a video about this. You can reference that. I'll probably put a link in the description. So I'm not going to go too much into detail, but basically you want a clamp that will clamp the string without it slipping and without it damaging the string. That's all you need from a clamp. So it doesn't matter if you're using flying clamps or fixed clamps. The only a good clamp is a good clamp, and a bad clamp is a bad clamp, regardless of whether it's flying or fixed. So you want a good flying clamp over a bad fixed clamp, and a good fixed clamp over a bad flying clamp. And it's mostly personal preference. It's like comparing apples and oranges. You ask 100 people and they all say something different. Some people like apples, some people like oranges. But nobody wants a rotten apple. No one wants to eat a rotten orange. Everybody wants a delicious orange. Everyone would pick a delicious apple over a rotten orange. So comparing the clamps here, as you can see on the left side, this is the Klippermate. This is the Eagnas fixed clamps. This is the Eagnas flying clamp and the Stringway flying clamp. So what I can say about the Klippermate from my experience, the Klippermate flying clamp, is that it's like a rotten apple or a rotten orange. I mean, I cannot recommend this to anyone. The build quality is good, but as you can see, the clamping width is so narrow that it's very difficult to adjust the clamp to keep the string from slipping and to not damage the string. It's just too difficult to use. When I used it, the string either slipped or if you tighten it enough where it doesn't slip, then it damages the string. And this is probably one of the worst clamps, flying or fixed clamps, I've ever used. I would recommend the Eagnas fixed clamps over the Klippermate flying clamp, because although the Eagnas fixed clamps, the clamping width isn't that much wider. You're looking at the badminton fixed clamps. I don't have any tennis fixed clamps, but just comparing the badminton, this is the badminton. A badminton fixed clamp is almost the same width as a tennis flying clamp, which is insane in my opinion. The tennis flying clamp should be much wider. And the Eagnas tennis fixed clamp is a little bit wider, but not much wider, but it is a little bit wider, and it seems to be more stable. It's a little bit easier to adjust it to prevent clamp string slipping or string damaging. However, the Eagnas fixed clamps, it still is a little bit difficult to get it just right, but it is a little bit easier than the Klippermate. But I do recommend the Eagnas flying clamps and the Stringway flying clamps, or the Stringway fixed clamps. They're both good over the Klippermate flying clamp and the Eagnas fixed clamps. The Eagnas fixed flying clamp and the Stringway flying clamp and the Stringway, I guess we can take a look here. This is the Stringway fixed clamp. They're much wider than the flying clamp, the Klippermate flying clamp. The Eagnas is much wider, and the Stringway is even a little bit more, it's even a little bit wider than the Eagnas. So basically you want to clamp with a wide clamping area, so you don't need to put as much pressure on the string because it can be spread out over a wider area on the string. And for the most part, that's what makes a clamp easier to use, in my opinion. So the Stringway is the widest. The Eagnas is pretty close, but a little bit shorter. And the Klippermate is really, really too narrow. So if you do buy the Klippermate, I strongly recommend getting a good set of flying clamps. These flying clamps, I can never recommend using these flying clamps. Even the Eagnas flying clamps is better. The Stringway is the best if you can afford it. Okay, and next is the racket support system. Now, the Eagnas uses a 6-point racket support system. The Klippermate and Stringway uses what's called a direct support system, where they support the top and bottom, but not the sides. And the reason why the Eagnas needs side supports is because the top and bottom supports are just too narrow. It's insufficient. If you support the mains properly over a wide area, then you don't need side supports. The reason why you need side supports with this system is because the top support is only 6 millimeters wide. You only have 6 millimeters here. Whereas the Klippermate, it's about 4 centimeters, 4.2 centimeters, roughly a little bit more than 4 centimeters. And the Stringway over here is much, much wider. As you can see, it supports pretty much most of the mains. So as you're pulling on the mains, you have supports right underneath it. So it counters any force that you put on the racket. And that's why in this system you definitely do not need side supports. And in this system, as you pull the mains, the racket doesn't change shape at all. So there really is virtually no stress on the racket. And the width here is about 11 centimeters. On the bottom it's about 8-9 centimeters. I think it's about 8, I can't remember. It's much wider than the Klippermate. Over here, the Klippermate, again, is about 4, a little bit more than 4 centimeters. And again, the Eagnas is 6 millimeters. Very, very narrow. So, when you string with the Eagnas, or with this system, not just Eagnas, but any machine that uses this system, because the top and bottom supports are so inadequate, you have these side supports preventing the racket from widening as you pull on the mains. And this does put a lot of stress on the racket, even though the racket may not break right away. But over long periods of time, after many stringings, the racket will get weaker and weaker. Simply because, you're pulling the mains here, but you're supporting here and here. It's a very indirect support system. And this actually puts a lot of stress on the racket. Whereas with the Stringway, as you're pulling the mains, you have supports directly under, so the racket doesn't warp or change shape at all. Now, the Klippermate is somewhere in between. It doesn't have side supports, and the top and bottom, the main supports, are much wider than the 6 millimeter on the Eagnas. But it's not nearly as wide as on the Stringway, so it's somewhere in between. Which is better, Klippermate or this Eagnas one? That's a good question. I'm willing to say the Klippermate. I would choose the Klippermate racket supports over the Eagnas for this reason. I've strung many rackets with the Eagnas. To be honest, the Klippermate I've only strung 1 or 2 rackets, but when I strung with the Klippermate, and from talking to my friends, the person that sold me this Klippermate, he said, yeah, the racket, he didn't notice any deformation when stringing, pulling the mains. And when I use it, I didn't see any noticeable change in shape when I'm pulling the mains. But however, with this Eagnas one, as soon as you pull the first string, the racket immediately changes shape. It gets shorter. You can definitely see the racket warping. So in that regards, I would say I would give the racket support system the Klippermate. If anything, without side supports, it will make it easier to string the crosses, because the side supports can get in the way. But of course, the Stringway support system is much better. Okay, and next is the tension system, which actually is less important compared to the clamping and the clamps and the support system. That should be the last thing you think about. But I mean, to make it short, the both of the Eagnas and the Klippermate, if used properly, its tension is very accurate. You know, with the drop weight machine, any drop weight machine is pretty much the most accurate tension system you can get. However, both require a lot of adjusting. And the Eagnas require, well, both of them require the drop weight to finish at perfectly horizontal position. However, the Eagnas requires the string gripper to finish pointing straight down. Because if the string gripper is on this side or on this side, it adds or subtracts the weight from the drop weight. So it is a lot of adjusting, a lot of time spent. The Klippermate is the same. With the Klippermate, it's very difficult to get it right the first time. I found myself having to pull and redo it many times to get the tension just right, where the drop weight finishes perfectly horizontal. They're both time consuming. They both can, but they both can be very accurate. However, the Eagnas is more likely to break. There's more moving parts. There's a spring inside the clutch system that will break, so that does require service. It's less reliable. Overall, the Eagnas machine is a less reliable machine. There's more parts to break, and the clamps are more likely to break. There's just more. The Klippermate is a lot more reliable in the sense that there's less parts to break. And then of course the Stringway. Well, comparing a drop weight machine, the one right over there, the tension system is really easy to use. You just drop the weight. You don't need to adjust anything. As long as the weight doesn't hit the bottom of the table, it's okay. So it is a lot more efficient, lot faster to use, and again, much less moving parts, less likely to break. So in this situation, comparing Klippermate and Eagnas, I would say it's really hard. I would almost go with the Klippermate, simply because it's more reliable, less likely to break, which is easier to use. That's a toss-up. They're both very tedious to use. It's hard to say, but just knowing that the Klippermate will not break as easily as the Eagnas, it doesn't use a spring that needs to be replaced. And the Eagnas string gripper, I mean, I have had problems with the ball bearings coming out, or the string gripper being too tight or too loose, doesn't hold the string. That can happen. Whereas the Klippermate is a much simpler cam action design, less likely to happen. No, okay, build quality. In general, from my experience, this Klippermate seems to have a simpler build quality, simpler design, less parts to break than the Eagnas. But here's one thing that I really don't like about this Eagnas one. You notice the tension post, how thin it is. I mean, this is only, I think it's only like 1 centimeter, 10 millimeters thick. And, you know, under normal use, it shouldn't be a problem. I mean, I've never had this break while doing use, but it has broke doing shipping many times. And as you can see, if I just move just tap the weight, you know, it does, you know, move a lot because it's just so thin over here. And I have had customers that actually broke this, and fortunately I had extra parts, so I was fortunate enough to be able to help them and send them the extra part for this. Now, of course, you know, you do have to hit the machine. Maybe they made a mistake and bumped into it or something, but you know, it doesn't require a whole lot of force to break it. You know, but just tapping it like this, no, it's not going to break. But in my opinion, it's just too thin. It's too thin. And the reason why it's thin is because of this tool tray. And the problem with the tool tray is that because there's a tool tray, the table and the tension head system has to be on the outer edge. And by the way, this tool tray is not very useful because, as you can see, you put any tools of any considerable size, and it's going to hit the table when you turn it. So it's not very useful to begin with. There aren't too many tools you can put here. But also because of this, because of the table, it's off center, and the table is one of the heaviest parts of the machine. The machine is very awkward to try and lift up and move. So if you're going to be moving this machine a lot, I don't recommend this because the balance is very bad. It's hard to balance the machine in your arms because the weight is all on one side. The table and the tension head is all on the side. It's not in the middle where it should be. Whereas if you look at the Klippermate, where it go? If you look at the Klippermate, first of all, the Klippermate, the tension post is much thicker. This tension post is I think the Eagnas is 1 centimeter, and this tension post is okay. It's a little bit more than 3 centimeters, so it's more than 3 times. Actually, how much is the Eagnas? Yeah, it's at least 3 times more than the Eagnas one. So it is a lot thicker, a lot more stable. But more importantly, if you look, the table and the tension system is right in the middle of the machine. So it does make it a lot more portable. It is a lot easier to lift up. And it's the same with the Stringway. Everything's in the center of the machine, so the balance is much easier. The tension post is much thicker, much wider, at over 6 centimeters. Yeah, it's over 6 centimeters. So again, the Stringway is going to be even more stable and just as easy to move. However, the Klippermate is a lot lighter. So I would say if you're going to be moving the machine a lot, the Klippermate is your best bet. It's the smallest and lightest. And again, that's why I would recommend the Klippermate. And I think the Klippermate's cheaper too. A little bit cheaper. Although if you buy the Klippermate, again, you have to get the flying clamps. So that pretty much comes down to it. Yeah, I guess now I think about it, I guess the Klippermate would be the winner, simply because it's cheaper, lighter, it's better balanced, the build quality is better, less likely to break, more reliable. The downside of the Klippermate is that it can either only string tennis or badminton. I think if you're going to string badminton, you need to get special badminton parts to string it. Whereas the good thing about the Eagnas design is that you can string tennis and badminton with the same machine without getting any additional parts. And so if you're going to string both tennis and badminton, I would almost say just get the Klippermate and buy the parts needed to string both, as opposed to the Eagnas. I would recommend that. And by the way, right now I don't sell either of the Eagnas or the Klippermate, so I have no reason to recommend one or the other. But for my first machine, now that I think about it, I think the Klippermate might be a slightly better machine. If you do get the Eagnas, get it without the tool tray, because then the balance of the machine would be much better. It would be a little bit lighter, and the tension post would be a lot wider. The reason why this tension post is so thin is because it needs to be out at the edge. But some of the other models, the tension post is a lot wider because you can put everything in the center and it's a lot more stable. And I think right now that's about it. Pretty much the biggest things you need to worry about with the stringing machine is the clamping system, the racket support system, and the tension system. And I think I covered all of that. And if you have any questions or comments, just write them down and let me know what you think.